The Trouble with Harry is a 1955 Alfred Hitchcock comedy film, and we're covering it today on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Golden Hour Film Podcast. My name is Harry Bailey, joined by my co-host, not guest host, Shane Mulvaney. Shane, would you believe that there is an elephant in the room with us?
Really?
Last week I won't say we made a mistake, but there was a bit of a glaring omission from last week's episode.
Okay.
And that is that we failed to mention that it was the 2-year anniversary of the podcast.
Oh, God.
We are 2 years old.
Happy birthday to us.
Yep. Happy belated birthday to the Golden Hour Film Podcast. I'm sure on Instagram we'll have stuff up on the correct day.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to us and you're wondering, that's kind of weird that they didn't mention it in the actual podcast. We are mentioning it just a week late. Yes, we are 2 years old now. Thank you so much for all the support, of course, to our YouTube subscribers and our sea of audio listeners these days. Thank you so much. Shane, any messages after 2 years to the people who for some reason still listen to us?
Don't go away. Keep listening, keep watching.
Please stay.
Please stay. Yeah. What do we have to do? Just thanks to everyone for obviously we're closing on 1,000 subs now. The listeners on like audio only platforms are going way up. I think we're moving in the right direction, hopefully.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously, please make sure to subscribe. If you're listening to us, leave a 5-star review on whatever platform it is that you listen to us on. In the meantime, today, we are covering Alfred Hitchcock, bit of a landmark film for Hitchcock. It's also, for us, the first Hitchcock comedy film we've covered since episode 3 of the podcast, which is a long time ago, nearly 2 years ago, would you believe? Which was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We didn't particularly like that film, neither of us did. This is my first time seeing this film, The Trouble with Harry, which, as I said, bit of a landmark. It is Shirley Maclaine's feature film debut. What a flex that is to have, and introducing Shirley Maclaine in your opening credits. And also, of course, it is the first collaboration between Alfred Hitchcock and Bernard Herrmann, whose scores would go on to define so many Alfred Hitchcock films. As I said, it's my first time watching it, but it's not Shane's first time. So, in a spoiler-free review, Shane, what are your thoughts on Alfred Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry, having seen it before once?
Yeah, I remember on the first watch quite enjoying it. It's quite slight and it's not it's not like one of his most ambitious efforts, but it is a comedy, and especially in his Hollywood era, he didn't obviously do very many of those. It's what's interesting is it's set in America, it's set in Vermont, but it does kind of have a bit of a British sense of humor throughout.
It's very, very British, like dark humor.
Yeah, definitely dark humor for sure. So obviously, the plot essentially revolves around people who, each of them kind of think that they are responsible for the death of this man, accidentally we should say, and then kind of take steps to cover up the evidence. But obviously, who's actually responsible, we don't know. And yeah, it's basically like it's a comedy of errors essentially, and it's kind of a farce as well. And yeah, it's quite enjoyable on a first watch. I remember. We'll see what we get into when we get into it, how I felt on a second watch. But I think there's definitely enough kind of enjoyable performances here that, especially from Shirley Maclaine and Edmund Gwenn, who obviously, am I right in saying he's a Golden Hour Film Podcast Award winner for Best Random Side Character for Foreign Correspondent?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid that was, if you remember, that was Harry Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, it was. And I thought that was a scandal, because that's a fairly substantial role, I think, personally. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure he has two scenes where he's got lines in them, which is less than rarely. So
okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, shout out to Edmund Gwenn. He's obviously a scene stealer in that film, and definitely in this film as well, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
And of course, Chris Kringle as well from Miracle on 34th Street, which we covered many moons ago. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I think it's interesting because although it's not Hitchcock's most ambitious when it comes to the scope of the film, I think it's pretty ambitious that he didn't. It's not a star-driven film.
Yeah.
Obviously, in hindsight, Shirley MacLaine's a star, but like this is her first film. You look at the sort of slate of Hitchcock films in the 50s, and you have your Jimmy Stewarts, your uh, Doris Day, you know, you've got Cary Grant in there. Like, you've so many massive notable names. Obviously, Grace Kelly. And with this, you don't necessarily have like an A-list Hollywood star in the film. I also think it's pretty ambitious of him to try and make a dark comedy in America using kind of British humor, the sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. And I think a lot of the humor actually lands.
Yeah.
It's by no means my favorite Hitchcock film. Again, funnily enough, as far as I'm aware, he was really high on this film. Apparently, he really liked this
He
film.
loved this, yeah.
Yeah, this is very much enjoyable. I definitely recommend it to anyone. I was surprised at how dark and instant the humor is. Like, it really is. With some of his other films that are kind of comedies, like Young and Innocent, it's like a comedy, but it's also like a wrong man thriller.
Yeah.
And with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's a comedy, but it's also like a relationship drama as well.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just like a really cynical comedy film from the get-go. And that kind of took me off guard, and I actually appreciated it. But overall, I don't necessarily think it's one of Hitchcock's absolute greatest works, but I did enjoy it. I will say that. I definitely did enjoy it. And speaking of enjoyed it, we are going to, of course, discuss the films that we talked about. Sorry, the films that we've watched recently at the end of this episode too. But in the meantime, it is time to talk about The Trouble with Harry with all the spoilers. So Shane, my question for you is, of course, The Trouble with Harry. What is it all about?
Yep, so essentially it revolves around a guy called Harry who is dead on the kind of up on a hill in kind of the fields of Vermont, this small town in Vermont, and a bunch.
I love the tagline of this film.
Yeah.
It's The Trouble with Harry is that he is dead.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And there's another great tagline actually next week, we should say as well, but anyway, we'll get on to that next week. So essentially it revolves around a bunch of townsfolk in Vermont who each of them kind of stumble upon this body of Harry, and they're all convinced that they are responsible for accidentally killing Harry and obviously for his death, and they're all kind of worried about the ramifications of what will go on. Like, will they go to prison for manslaughter or murder, or of accidental death, whatever way you want to call it. They all have kind of things that they basically can't be in prison for, essentially. So the first person to come across Harry's body is little Arnie, who's the son of Jennifer, of Shirley MacLaine's character Jennifer, and he kind of comes across and is frightened and he runs away. And then Captain Wiles, played by Edmund Gwenn brilliantly,
Yes.
he then he's out kind of shooting pheasants or whatever he's doing, shooting kind of animals in the woods, going hunting.
He's trying to shoot rabbits. He's never successfully shot one though.
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, it's actually important that it is a rabbit as well, which we get onto.
Yeah, he has never successfully shot a rabbit. Shot many cans and many signs.
Yeah.
But never an actual rabbit.
Yeah, and he lets off 3 shots, and as he's going over, and he sees the body of Harry, and he is convinced that he is responsible for killing Harry. And so it's pretty funny, he's talking to himself about like covering up the evidence, until Miss Gravely comes along, who's like a kind of older woman, a little bit younger than Captain Wiles, I'd say, but definitely not far off his age, and they are...
Well, we find out what age she is in the film, which is actually played as a joke, which is interesting. She's the joke is later on in the film is she obviously fancies Captain Wiles, and there's a fella in the village who's a bit of he thinks of himself as a bit of an artiste, and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you a makeup. What age are you?" And she's like, "I'm 42," and he's like, 42? You're only 42? Which is wild. But yeah, she's only 42 in this film. I think the actress that played her was in her mid 40s as well, which like
Yeah, that is mad. Anyway, Miss Gravy comes along, and it's pretty funny that Captain Wells just straight up admits that he's killed this guy Harry and that he's gonna
yeah,
destroy
so
the evidence.
nonchalant.
Yeah, it's just like, I have to get rid of the evidence because otherwise I'm gonna go to prison. Like, what else am I gonna do? It's just straight up admitting the fact that he's responsible for a death and then asking her help in kind of destroying the evidence. It's pretty funny. And then Annie comes along. Arnie comes along with Jennifer, and she is not too displeased at all to see Harry lying on this hill, and yeah, she seems pretty happy about it. In all honesty, and she kind of says, "Yeah, good riddance to you," and she walks off. And so every time Captain Wiles tries to get rid of this body, he keeps getting interrupted by a guy, kind of a professor-looking guy, kind of just reading a magazine, or a book, reading along
Yeah,
the hill, keeps falling over the body as well, and just not even
he's
acknowledging
just so
the fact.
bet into that book.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times this happens, falls over the book and just keeps wandering off. So every time Captain Wiles tries to dispose of this body, he just keeps getting interrupted. The poor chap.
Yeah, there's also a homeless guy that comes up and just kicks Harry's dead body just to make sure he's dead, and then
Yeah,
steals his shoes, which like, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting from the get go for it to be this like in your face comedy, but I really enjoyed the opening. Yeah, this guy kind of comes singing and strolling his way into town, played by John Forsyth, who, funnily enough, his name was Marlowe, Sam Marlowe, and he is a bit of a an artist in sort of in a bit of a slapstick way. Like, he goes up to this woman who sells his paintings, and he's too cheap to buy a full pack of cigarettes, so he asks her to cut the pack of cigarettes in half, and he'll come back and pay for the other half tomorrow. And her name's Wiggy, and he kind of gives out to Wiggy for not being able to sell his paintings, but it also is a bit of an ongoing gag throughout the film. There's so many opportunities for him to actually sell his art to people, and he just never actually clocks it.
yeah,
He's obviously so engrossed in his art that he's such a terrible businessman. He doesn't actually think the business side of things. And then Wiggy's son is like the deputy sheriff. He's a local deputy anyway, and played by Royal Dano, who just looks like a guy from a David Lean movie. He just looks like he would be in David Lean's movies. Or sorry, David Lynch, I should say. David Lynch.
yeah.
He looks like a David Lynch character. Yeah, just worth noting that he is like in some way involved in the law and also has a car, because he hears all the shooting going on, which to all the village people they just assume is the captain going up trying and failing to shoot rabbits. But Wiggy's son is like, I don't know, I'm gonna go investigate. So he goes up in the car to investigate. Meanwhile, yeah, Miss Gravely, who has now arranged for a date with Captain Wiles, because again, it was just so funny how nonchalant their conversation was over the dead body. She just like asks him out whilst there's a dead body on the floor, and he's like, "Oh yes, that sounds lovely." And she's like, "Perfect, I'm gonna make blueberry muffins." And then she heads home. So she actually heads to this shop run by Wiggy and Marlowe, and that's when Marlowe does the whole "you're only 42" thing, and he tries to do a makeover for her. And again, we get another very funny scene where this like multimillionaire rocks up with his butler and is like looking at all the art, and nobody comes out to serve him, so he just leaves. Yeah, Marlowe still hasn't sold a painting at this point.
Yeah, and at this point, Marlowe and Jennifer have kind of struck up a bit of a romance. She kind of admits that Harry was her second husband. Her first husband died, and Harry was her second husband. But essentially they didn't really get on. She kind of took Arnie and left, and he's been kind of trying to find them ever since for the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. And so he's obviously found out that we're in Vermont, and he comes there. And so Harry's been in a couple of scrapes already that day. So Jennifer kind of socked him earlier in the day when they got into a bit of an argument, and then he got into another altercation with another woman, which we'll find out later on. But yeah, essentially, there's enough reason for people to think that Jennifer might essentially want to cause harm to Harry, and so she is another candidate for potentially murdering on purpose or accidentally, her husband, her estranged husband. Um, and also Sam Marlowe then agrees to help Captain Wiles bury the body, because he thinks that if he does this, he obviously will ingratiate himself even more with Jennifer, and that will be his way in there. So it's a pretty.
It's also very funny because because every character in this film is intentionally very stupid.
Yeah.
He stupidly just like it's very funny. He goes up to like paint a landscape, and he, without knowing it, paints the dead body in the landscape, and then goes, "Oh, wait a minute!" And then he looks, and the dead body's right in front of him. So then he just starts sketching Harry's dead face, and then he just keeps that for later, because of course we'll come back to that later.
Yeah. And Miss Gravely also says that because Jennifer kind of socked Harry, she obviously punched him, and he's kind of gone off wandering in a daze. So he assumed that Miss Gravely, when he kind of ran into her, and it's obviously hinted at that Harry's not exactly the nicest person in the world, so he kind of started being a bit belligerent to Miss Gravely, and she hit him over the head with a metal shoe when he tried to kind of essentially manhandle her and say that she was his wife, because he obviously mistook her for Jennifer. And so again, Miss Gravely is convinced that she is responsible for Harry's death. So you have about 3 different characters at this point, all convinced that they are responsible for Harry's death. Yeah, as I said, Sam and Captain Walsh, I should say, then try and fail a bunch of different times to dig a grave, pop the
Honestly,
body.
it's the funniest joke in the film.
I think so, yeah.
Is them constantly burying and then for whatever reason having to dig up Harry's corpse over and over and over again. It kind of carries the film for like a good portion of it.
Yeah.
It's just that recurring gag of them going, "Oh God, we have to dig him back up again. Oh God, we have to bury him again," over and over and over again.
It's brilliant. It is like, as I said, a comedy of errors. That's it in a nutshell. Really, that's the movie in a nutshell, right there.
Definitely, it's a great way to describe it.
And yeah, then eventually they realise that the deputy is kind of on the lookout for this guy who was reported to be dead in the hills, and so eventually Sam Marlowe proposes to Jennifer, and she says yes, but then they're like, "Oh crap, we're not going to be able to get married unless they know that your actual husband is dead. Otherwise, you'll have to wait 7 years. So God, we're going to have to dig this body back up again, aren't we?" And so eventually they kind of agree to all just dig the body up, report it to the police, say what happened once and for all, and just admit that, like, obviously whatever happened to this guy, the police will kind of figure it out and do their investigation, and just hopefully like they'll admit that was an accident, and that they'll all kind of get off scot-free. And then obviously we get into the kind of business end of the movie.
Yeah, because that guy, again, this is one of the funniest things in the film. That idiot who's like so bet into his book and keeps tripping over the dead body, he's the local GP. He's a doctor. Because when they dig up the body for the final time, he trips over the body again whilst reading his book and goes, "Oh, I beg your pardon," and then realizes that it's a corpse, and then like checks, and everyone kind of comes out from the bushes who was digging him up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't know what happened, it was an accident." So they agree to bring the body back to Jennifer's house, Mr. Rogers. Bring the body back, and they hide it in the bathtub. Meanwhile, worth noting as well that there was this mad scene where someone eventually does come and buy Marlowe's art, but he basically says that it's priceless. So he just asks everyone in the room what they want, and this guy grants it to them. And he doesn't tell anyone what his wish is. He just whispers it in your man's ear, and he finds it kind of funny and agrees. But what he accidentally does is when they all leave, he leaves the sketch of Harry's dead face behind. So Wiggy's son, the policeman, finds it and goes, "That is exactly like the face of the corpse that was described to me," because this whole time he's trying to find this body that the homeless guy felt bad about and reported it to the police. But he keeps going up to try and find the body, but every time he goes up, it's just after they've buried him for the second or third or fourth time. Yeah. But eventually, he's like, "That guy's not crazy. This is exactly what he was talking about." So Wiggy's son comes to interrogate them whilst they have Harry's dead body in the bathtub. They're hiding him in the bathtub. And Yeah, he shows Marlowe the sketch and is like, that is the sketch of a body that I'm looking for. Marlowe just like totally destroys the sketch in front of him. He's like, oh no, that's just your interpretation. Watch. And he just completely alters it and makes it look like a different face. And the guy's like, you've just tampered with police evidence right in front of me. And he's like, no, 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 no. It was your perspective that it was police evidence. It was actually just a sketch. So I actually did nothing illegal there, which is great. It also seems like the captain has like had a freaker and done a runner under pressure, but turns out he's actually gone out to the car and he starts honking on the horn or whatever to distract the policeman. So when the policeman comes out, he's just like, oh, here, lads, these are all messing with my head. I've no idea what's happening here. Is there a dead body or is there not a dead body? And that's when the doctor shows up to examine the dead body.
Yeah. The doctor goes in, examines the dead body, and then comes out and he says, kind of casually mentions, he had a seizure. And so they're like, wait, what seizure? Like, no, like it was a bullet hole, or it was a concussion, or it was
a shoe to the head.
Yeah, being conked over the head with a metal shoe. He's like, no, it was a seizure. This dude has a seizure.
He died of natural causes.
Natural causes, no one's responsible. And so, yeah, essentially that's the movie. Like, it's they've spent this whole day convincing themselves that they're murderers, that they have been burying evidence, unburying evidence, reburying evidence, unburying evidence, reburying evidence, and then eventually they're like to kind of figure it out it was all for nothing, and it was all fine in the end. And anyway, it was a kind of happy ending, Hollywood style ending anyway, because
I love the last two lines of the film are so funny.
Yeah.
So basically they stage, because he died of natural causes, they're like, cool, okay, we can just stage it then. We'll put him back where he was. Yeah. We're going to get Arnie to find him, run home to his mom. His mom's going to call the police, and then it's going to be sorted. But Arnie comes up, and honestly, my favourite line delivery of the whole film, Arnie comes up, and he's hanging around, and they're all like, why is he not going back to his mom's? What's he doing? And then Marlowe just shouts, beat it, you little creep, to the child who's like 8 years old. Which is so funny. And then the kid runs off, which is just, yeah, that really got me. And then, of course, they ask, oh, you wished for strawberries for the rest of for your life. You wish for whatever. Marlowe, what did you wish for? A double bed. Hey, end of movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the trouble with Harry. Yeah, it's a good time. It's there's not a lot to it.
Yeah.
But that's okay. As I said, it's not a star powered film. It's not a epic. It's not a massive political spy thriller. It's none of that, or a wrong man conspiracy thriller. It's just sort of a kind of wrong man comedy.
Yeah.
And it's very low key. It's very intentionally set out of like a city. It's very intentionally out in the sort of middle of nowhere. It's very small, quiet film that's very funny. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It's good fun. It could possibly go up on a rewatch. I think everyone's kind of enjoyable in it, but I don't necessarily know if there's like a standout. Obviously, anytime I see Edmund Gwenn in a film, he just happens to stand out, but that's just because I love that guy. Yeah, it's a good fun film. Not Hitchcock's best, in that middle tier, which again, for any other director, that's like not a massive achievement, but like that Hitchcock middle tier, there's some real gems in there, and I would consider this to be one of them. I enjoyed this quite a bit. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I remember on the first watch quite enjoying this. Yeah, it's definitely like lower tier Hitchcock in the sense of just in terms of the stakes, if nothing else. Which is kind of a welcome change of pace, as I always say. It's a welcome change of pace, considering like at this point he'd be doing probably 10 to 12 years of like kind of high stakes, like super high stakes kind of characters in a really, really bad dilemma and a bad predicament. So this by comparison is
a lot of thrillers.
Yeah, a lot of thrillers. Like I said, this is, apart from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this I think is his only other comedy in Hollywood after like 1940. So maybe I'm missing one there.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I can't think of
Did he
anything
have a
else.
comedy in the 60s?
I haven't seen all of the '60s movies, so maybe there's one I'm missing. But certainly, like after his kind of British era of the '30s and
Yeah.
late '20s, he did do a bunch of
Yeah, because
obviously,
Jamaica Inn's good fun as well. That's a pretty funny film
yeah,
too. But that's obviously in Britain.
and The Lady Vanishes is quite funny as well. Like there's definitely a few kind of really pretty funny British comedies in the '30s, but once he kind
Mm.
of started making Hollywood movies, there was only like a handful, if that. So this is like this is definitely worth checking out for that reason alone, just to see kind of how his sense of humor kind of evolved over the years. Like I said, it definitely has like a dark heart at its kind of at its core, and it's more of a farce and a comedy of errors than like anything that's uproariously funny. So don't go in
Yeah.
expecting like, you know, prime Adam McKay or you know Adam McKay's not to everyone's taste, but I do love a good Adam McKay movie. So you know, don't go in expecting that basically. But it's definitely I gave it 3 stars on both occasions too. I think on a rewatch probably saw some of the issues a little bit more on a rewatch, but if you haven't seen it before, certainly I think it's definitely like a once off. Even if you just watch it once, you'll get enough out of it. So I definitely would recommend this.
Fantastic, and that was The Trouble with Harry. Next week we are covering The Man Who Knew Too Much, but first we're going to talk about the films that we have watched recently. So it's not been that long since we last recorded, but I've actually seen a fair few films. First and foremost, I saw the best film of 2026 so far. That was Project Hail Mary. Absolutely amazing. Blew me away. Loved it. I watched Lord Miller's interview with Sean Fennessy after as well, which just kind of really further hammered home how amazing this movie is. One, how much of a challenge it is. Like, okay, you are making a film about a guy who wakes up with amnesia on a ship by himself, and then this is in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler. He meets an alien with no face. Like, that's a bit of a challenge, and it's one of the most obviously well regarded sci-fi novels ever. So they had high expectations to meet. I loved it. I really did love it. It is kind of needed in the same way that like I felt like Superman. I think this is better than Superman from last year. Don't get me wrong, but in the same way that Superman from last year was kind of like a breath of fresh air. It was just nice to watch a positive, happy movie. I love my thrillers. I love my darker films. Don't get me wrong, but it was nice to just watch like a really enjoyable, fun film. Obviously it's high stakes and there's some real tearjerker moments in there, but like it's Lord and Miller. They gave us like 21 Jump Street and the Lego movie. Like they are renowned for a good time at the movies, and this is exactly that. It's a good time at the movies. And I genuinely think it'll go down as one of the best sci-fi movies of the 2020s. I don't think that can be disputed. I think it will go down as one of the best sci-fi films of the decade. I absolutely loved it, and I love sci-fi films as well. I then watched Dark Victory because by the time this comes out, this is out of date. But Warner Archive were doing a big sale, so I picked up the Betty Davis collection. So I'm kind of working my way through that. Dark Victory is really good. I watched it first because for all my comic book fans out there, obviously Dark Victory as a title means a lot to me. It is the sequel to the greatest graphic novel ever written, which is The Long Halloween. Dark Victory is where Robin is introduced, and Batman and Robin basically navigate that incredible world that the writer of Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. God, I hope I'm right with that. It's Loeb and Sale anyway. Loeb and Sale obviously team back up to make Dark Victory, which I know has nothing to do with this film. But as soon as I found out that Betty Davis made a film called Dark Victory, of course I was like, I gotta watch that, and it was really good. It's it's funny. I feel like a lot of dramas from the sort of 20s, 30s, early 40s, 20s and 30s. I feel like a lot of them with with modern eyes don't necessarily hit home as hard. A lot of sort of taboo subjects that they're talking about are just normal in this day and age. Things like divorce or I don't know, like same sex relationships or whatever. Like obviously with context it's a big drama, but like if you're watching it now, a lot of those films don't really hit home as hard. Whereas this drama, and it's just a plain, it's flat out drama, this really hits home because it's about a woman who basically, and it's shot very well and it's got a crazy cast. She finds out that she has a growth on her brain, and she kind of lives a bit of a high life and doesn't want to stop living that high life. And she kind of falls in love with their doctor, but she doesn't really know how to manage that. She also kind of falls in love with her stable boy, who is Humphrey Bogart, who has a terrible Irish accent in this film. Yeah, what the characters in this film go through, I don't think there will ever be a time where it's dated. It's just really hard to watch at times. It's really gripping. The ending is fantastic. It really hits home. But yeah, like the cast is stacked. You've got Betty Davis, George Brent, Humphrey Bogart, Ronald Reagan, Henry Travers, Geraldine Fitzgerald. Like it's great cast. It's directed by Edmund Goulding, who obviously directed a Best Picture winner, Grand Hotel, which I haven't seen. But he also directed the original Nightmare Alley, which I need to watch because I know a lot of people like it. And yeah, Dark Victory was very good. I then watched a little old film, you may have heard of it, called Yee Yee by Edward Yang. Holy fucking shit. This blew my mind. It's my first Edward Yang film, and it's honestly one of the greatest films of the 21st century. His direction is mind blowing. The performances are amazing. There's so many shots in this. There's a shot with a card trick in it, and my jaw just hit the floor watching it. It's like, it's incredible. It also, I saw a very good description of this film because it's kind of hard to describe the film without making it sound very basic. But a very good description of this film is to say that Yee Yee is about a family is in the same way of saying the Citizen Kane is about a newspaper company. Like it's about a family, but it's about so much more than just that within that family. Honestly, one of the most memorable watches of the year for me. Incredible film. That little kid Yang Yang is just fucking adorable. He's so great. Yeah, love Yee is amazing. I have Brighter Summer Day there as well. I watched the Criterion. I have the Criterion of Brighter Summer Day. That's obviously way longer. Yee is about 3 hours. A Brighter Summer Day is like touching 5 hours. I think it's over 4 anyway. So I really need to set aside some time to watch that because if Yee is anything to go off, I know I'm gonna love A Brighter Summer Day. I then watched because obviously I watched Project Hail Mary. I decided to watch another sort of trapped in space film, which is Event Horizon. Have you seen Event Horizon?
I'm not, no.
Event Horizon is a good fucking time at the movies. I would say if you were like 19 or 20 years old when this came out and you took someone on a date to see this film, you would be coming out of the cinema having a great time. It is like a proper cinema movie. It's Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne are head of this crew who are going to visit the Event Horizon, which is a ship in space that went missing. It was supposed to like basically bridge the gap between different galaxies, and then it just went missing one day, and then it's all of a sudden it's returned. So they have to go and investigate, and it's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who I know isn't a director for everyone, but it's actually my first Paul W.S. Anderson film that I've seen, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like the peak of like 90s new metal sci-fi horror, because obviously you've got Jason X as well, which came out at a similar time, and as fun and stupid as Jason X is, this is just like a great sci-fi horror, and some of the gore in this film, and like they're kind of like, it's like a flash of gore where you see an image happen to someone, the effects are insane. Like they're crazy. There's some pretty bad digital effects, but the actual practical effects are really good in those sort of scenes. And then last but certainly not least, I watched a film with genuinely one of the most stacked casts in human history, and that is Gosford Park, which was Robert Altman's murder mystery film. Although, not to get into spoilers, I love the fact that it's kind of a twist, but not really, that the murder mystery itself is actually totally secondary to just the absolute drama between these upstairs and downstairs communities in this. Like, the upstairs downstairs dynamic is way more important in this film than the actual murder mystery. You'd be forgiven for even forgetting that it's a murder mystery because you're just so invested in the sort of intertwined relationships between certain servers or porters or valets and the people upstairs. And I also love, obviously, as a Hitchcock fan, that someone in this someone in this film plays Ivor Novello, who, if you don't know, is of course the lead of The Lodger. I just thought that was a really good touch from Robert Altman, that the actual actor in this film is like an actual actor. And it's quite funny as well, because obviously Ivor Novello starred in the sound remake of The Lodger, which flopped, and Maggie Smith's character turns to him and was like, yes, it was a real shame about your last film, The Lodger. No one saw that, which is just like such a funny dig at actual Ivor Novello, who is obviously long dead at this point. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it. There's a certain Leo DiCaprio pointing at the screen moment where they hold on a baby photo, and that is just like, oh, and that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, Gosford Park is like a really fun murder mystery. But as I said, like, Stephen Fry as the detective literally is only in the film for like a small window. And again, I love how they utilize him in the film as well, to highlight the fact that the murder mystery is secondary itself. He's actually quite enjoyable in it. But there's so many good performances in this film. Like, it's an event. It's actually an Avengers level cast, but of British people. What about you, Shane? And Bob Balaban, of course.
Bob Balaban.
What about you, Shane?
I've actually seen Gosford Park. It was written by Julian Fellows, who wrote Downton Abbey. No, obviously never watched Downton Abbey, but yeah, that's kind of similar, obviously, themes with the upstairs, downstairs, obviously. Anyway, yeah, so not much for me this week. I did watch the TED, I did finish the TED not animated, what am I saying? The TED series, prequel series, which is very, very funny. Which inspired me to go back and watch TED and TED 2, which are both also funny, albeit the first one's obviously a lot better.
Yeah.
I then watched Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which is an annoying title, but I just call it Ready or Not, Here I Come. I mean, it's so annoying. Like,
or just Here I Come.
Yeah, even that, yeah. Anyway, if you like Ready or Not, you'll like this. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. Very, very.
I like Ready or Not.
Yeah, very, very, very fun movie it was a few years ago. Samara Weaving's fantastic. Catherine Newton's her sister in this one, and it's kind of, it's comparison. It's a very weird comparison to make because this is an action movie, but it definitely reminded me a little bit of John Wick Chapter 2 in that it just kind of expands the lore. Sorry, I hate that word, but the lore of the universe. In that, like, it's kind of more and more people are actually into this weird shit than you would think. So I kind of appreciate it. It's dumb and it's fun, and it's a pretty fun movie, like I said. And then last but not least, Munich from Steven Spielberg, which is obviously kind of a controversial movie even at the time. Spielberg actually got kind of a lot of criticism at the time from Jewish people and from kind of Palestinian kind of sympathizers and pro-Palestinian people at the time, because obviously what it's depicting the Israeli kind of Olympians in 1972 in Munich who were killed by the Black September terrorist group. And then essentially the Israeli government sanctioned a bunch of Mossad secret service agents to go and essentially take revenge on behalf of the state while denying all action, all accountability and all action. So yeah, look, it's a movie I was kind of reluctant to watch for a while, but with everything that's going on, obviously in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Palestine, but I just kind of I wanted to watch it, and that's what I thought about that. Doesn't really go far enough in my opinion. And definitely wish I had kind of delved more into the, like, obviously, it's been going on for so long, obviously, but maybe I just wish I'd kind of gone on, delved more into kind of, yeah, I don't know, maybe exploring both sides, shall we say.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I actually have a lot of because I listened to that's twice I'm going to mention him on the podcast. It's I listened to Sean Fantasy's interview with Steven Spielberg from last week as of recording this. Yeah, it was really, really good. But I realized that I actually have so many Spielberg blind spots, and I'm gonna obviously try and get as many of them in between now and Disclosure Day coming out as possible, because I'm very excited for that.
Yeah,
I think
same.
that's going to be a contender for Film of the Year, hopefully. But yeah, in the meantime, that was the episode of the Golden Hour Film Podcast where we covered The Trouble with Harry. Next week, Jimmy Stewart's back on the podcast. It's Doris Day's debut on the podcast. It's The Man Who Knew Too Much from 56. And, of course, keep on voting on that old classic film World Cup. And we are very much looking forward. We're very much looking forward to covering those films on the podcast, of course, but we've also, between ourselves, decided what we're doing after, and I'm also very excited for that arc too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got the classic film World Cup after our Hitchcock arc, which is coming to a close in about a month's time. In the meantime, though, I've been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shane Maloney.
And thank you for 2 years of the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Goodbye.